and welcome to Manx Radio's General Election Candidate Interview Series. I'm Amy Griffiths and I'm our election producer, and as we get closer to Thursday the 24th of September, we're giving all the candidates the chance to take part in a half-hour interview where we can find out a bit more about who they are and why they're standing. Up next, it's the turn of Rob Cowell, who's standing in Ramsey. He's been speaking to Phil Gawne.
Falch erugus rias cajun shares feed. Today I'm talking to Robert Cowell, who's standing, I think, for the second time in the constituency of Ramsey. So we'll start off with the obvious easy lob question. What made you want to put your name forward again as an MHK, and what motivates you?
Okay, well, thank you for having me. So I stood in the general election in 2021. Before that, I was a commissioner, only just. I spent 4 or 5 years in Ramstown Commissioners, getting to the ranks of chairman, which I thoroughly enjoyed. The reason I stand is because I do thoroughly enjoy the role of being in the community, helping your community and making a difference. That's the key thing for me, is if you can deliver something that's satisfied someone else's needs and wants, you are doing your job properly.
And what's the point of having MHKs? What is it that they are there to do?
Yeah, well, the point is there to operate democracy. The people of the Isle of Man have a public representative to carry their issues and concerns forward to government, as government, to shape legislation and policy for the future of the Isle of Man.
Okay. So we then move into your priorities. We ask all the candidates what their priorities are, and you've chosen the economy, fixing the government and protecting taxpayers and delivering for Ramsey. And you have some excellent statements in your manifesto. Obviously, I'm going to want to know how you're going to do this. So you talk of a need for confidence, ambition, and a government prepared to make things happen. So what needs to change, do you think, in terms of the way in which government operates? Okay, so
there are some bold statements in there. Grow the economy is something that we have to do. We are probably in a shrinking economy, especially the e-gaming sector, leaving as it has done, or to a point. There's an old saying in business that sales solves everything, and that if we can sell the Isle of Man, which we have a fantastic, beautiful place, we've got a great asset, we should be able to attract new business to the Isle of Man. So we start with new business. It's a very attractive place to live and to work, and we need more people to come and join the island, and especially the business community. That then brings with it employment and every benefit that goes with it. Fix the government is another thing I've copped a bit of stick for, but that is related to the direct inertia that we have. There's no movement. There's a lot of consultation. They consult and they consult and they consult to a point where they don't get anywhere. And we need politicians, in my belief, that are going to make decisions and move on and try and better the Isle of Man. The whole point of a general election, for me, is that if you don't like the direction or you don't like the decisions that have been taken, well, then you don't put them back in again. This kind of environment we have, where we have a politician who might look at it as a career for 20 years, and they're going to say, well, do whatever they can to keep their job, and we end up in a situation where nothing's being done, or a lot of things aren't done. Especially the bigger stuff isn't tackled because that might not be very popular with some people, but it still needs doing for the greater good of the Isle of Man. So I think it's that's my point around fixing government. Protecting the taxpayer and Ramsey, little things around tax and taxation that we could look at. Mainly for me, moving tax rates with inflation. I think that's quite important, that people can. It's fairer for everybody, and that's what government should be about, delivering fairness across the population. And delivering for Ramsey, I feel like Ramsey's been left behind for the last decade. Not a lot's happened if you look around. The local authorities done their bit and played their part, but there's only so far local government can go before it hits the barrier of central government. And I think that it's time that Ramsey saw some funds directed north.
Well, you've had experience, obviously, as a commissioner of what you describe as the barrier of central government. What is that barrier? What's behind it? I mean, why would you say there is a barrier, and how are you going to overcome that?
Yeah, in my experience, the barrier quite often is a DOI. You're up against a monster that's so big that it's difficult for it to control every element of its tentacles, its reach. How do we control that? How do we change that? I think that local government needs to be set free in a way. They are entities in their own right, however, they are still controlled by central government. I think local government needs more power. I think it needs more money. And then they can start to take better control of their regional control that gives central government a break in terms of everyone pecking them for this, that and the other. It allows them to move on and move forward and prosper, hopefully.
Things that you talk about, you talk about our island as at a turning point. Yeah. Technology, artificial intelligence, and changing global markets are reshaping economies around the world. And Isle of Man has reinvented itself before, and we can do it again. But how? Because I'm guessing most of the MHKs in the last 5 years have been thinking something remarkably similar to this, but they appear to have been thwarted in making significant change.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't, nothing in there is a dig at anyone to say they haven't been doing their job for the last 5 years. There's been, macro battles around the world that do affect the Isle of Man, that's right. But we need to look at ourselves harder, definitely. How are we going to do that? So obviously there's changing markets around the world. There's changing geopolitical environments around the world. We've got, even the other day, the news headline about Russia threatening the UK. The Isle of Man becomes more of a haven, more and more attractive. So I think that we should sell ourselves harder. We should provide more, and we can be that place that people want to come and live.
One of the things you talk about is a genuine partnership between government, business and community. And I guess you can add to that local government. But how do you deliver that? How do you go about creating genuine partnership, particularly when people start to lose trust and faith in processes?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the problem, trust and faith. And I think we have to rebuild that relationship between government and business. It's crucial that the future of the Isle of Man, in my opinion, and this is the best thing about standing for elections, it is my opinion, and people can buy into it or not, that we have to move on in a world where we have to look at our deficit and we say we're running at a loss of £100 million a year-ish, but our GDP is 1.4 billion. Well, if you call it 7%, and we're in the private sector looking at our books and going, we've got to save 7%, that shouldn't be impossible. It's not an insurmountable issue. So I look at the private sector as the answer. A lot of the answer. Government's too involved in everything and needs to actually zoom out a bit and say we're not involved in every single minute detail of the Isle of Man, and give that power and control back to the business community. I think the agency model, the DFE is a prime example. DFE is there, but it's also there and it's very much involved. It should be a facilitator and empowerer more than a controller. And I think that the power needs to go back into the private sector. An example of how public and private partnerships can work together. There's a housing development in Ramsey. There's a build price for local government or government to build a unit. Let's just say it's £320,000. But we can buy the same unit on the private market for £220,000. So it's £100,000 a unit, and we've just bought 24 of them, for example. So you save £2.5 million straight away. There are savings that can be had by dealing with the private sector, I'm convinced, and that also will stimulate the economy. So although we are saving, we should be stimulating and then generating as well. So you get a double win.
Some of the things that you talk about in terms of growing the economy, and you've got handy bullet points which I can ask lots of questions about. One is faster, more responsive planning and licensing. Does that mean reduced protection?
No. Faster responses. So planning is a battle that's been on the election radar last time. and probably the time before that, I don't know. It's an issue that's been passed around as a blocker to the economy. We are not getting projects through quick enough, which is then stifling the building construction market, which is feeding down to the guys on the street who aren't getting the jobs. Okay, construction is busy. It is busy, but it could be busier if planning were to be quicker and more responsive. And I think technology is going to help us. And I also think that if we were to look at local government reform, you could descale. Again, government's involved in everything. You know, Mrs. Smith wants to put a skylight at the back of her house. That could be a local government issue. Who understand the estate, understand the neighbours' concerns. It doesn't have to be a central government issue all the time. The other option could be, and it's been mooted before, but a 2-tier planning application. So you have a commercial stream at a big fee, quicker decision. You've got your skylight at the back of your house that you're not really too bothered about, can be at the band 2 effectively. So there are ways of looking at planning, and it's a fight that no one's really taken. I think it's one of those you get in and go, well, that's quite a big problem.
But is the problem not more that effectively it's not resourced properly? I mean, there aren't enough staff to make the swift decisions.
Yeah. So I think there's planning officers are in short supply, from what I've heard. I've heard some of them only working 3 days a week. We can't, it's difficult to actually attract these people. But that goes back to the point of make the Isle of Man the best place possible and attract these people, bring them here. We have got the best asset in Northern Europe, in my opinion. And we should be selling that, and we shouldn't struggle to get people.
But one reason why perhaps you don't attract people is because you regularly have politicians saying the planning system is holding up development and we need radical improvements and changes. And then the planners start thinking, well, actually, I want to go into a stable place where I know that the rules that we're operating under are going to be there and going to be backed by the politicians, and we're not just going to get attacked every single time there's a problem.
Yeah, I don't think the rules will change. It's making it more efficient that those procedures are followed. With technology that's coming through, there will be ways of scanning these applications to say, does it meet policy A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and it ticks all the boxes before it gets to an officer. So there'll be ways of streamlining process for sure. I've no doubt.
Okay, then we move to competitive taxation. Well, what do you mean by competitive taxation? Surely that's what we've got already.
Yeah, no, we are competitive. It's keeping it competitive. So we are not in the best financial state, and the easy answer is tax. But that is not the answer in the longer term view. It's keeping the Isle of Man a competitive place to live and work. Again, selling that dream of come to the Isle of Man, because that's what we need people to do. And taxation, competitive taxation is a key part of that for sure.
Backing entrepreneurs and small businesses. Well, yeah. I imagine that the enterprise ministers of this administration just passed would say that's exactly what they do.
I'm sure they would. Yeah, but I would try and turn that up to level 10. We want to attract entrepreneurs to the Isle of Man. They are the guys we need. They bring their businesses here, or they set the businesses up. The Isle of Man is a great test bed. You can create your business, launch it, and then if you want to, you can deploy it to the UK, you can deploy it to Ireland, Europe, anywhere you want. It's we need to support entrepreneurs, because that business will generate cash, it will generate VAT, it will generate employees, national insurance, employers, national insurance. The list goes on. An entrepreneur is a golden egg, really, and we want to protect them.
You talk about emerging industries. How do you go about finding emerging industries? Because, of course, government has famously had its fingers burnt with the whole King Gaming enterprise, which seemed on the face of it, when it was originally proposed, to be a really excellent prospect. So how do you go about identifying emerging industries, knowing that there's always going to be a risk?
There's a risk to everything that you do. Balance, mitigation, due diligence. The Isle of Man's been great at looking at these industries before: the film industry, the finance industry, the e-gaming sector. What's the next big sector we can bring to the Isle of Man is the crucial question. AI is obviously the next big project. Within 5 years, we'll know where that is, I think. And then again, after that, it's what's after that? What's the next project coming down the line? I don't know what that is, but it's about being in the right place to see what these opportunities around the world are, and then say, right, we think this is the next market, and go and attract it.
And then you talk about fixing government and protecting taxpayers. The 2 bullet points here where I'm going to suggest the areas for improvement, maybe. So greater discipline over public spending, clear accountability for major projects. And yet, what people regularly tell us about the additional cost of government projects is because a significant amount is added to these projects to make sure that spending is demonstrably fair, transparent and accountable. And this is, how do you overcome this? That by trying to make greater discipline in public spending and clearer accountability, that you add a whole raft of additional bureaucracy to be able to demonstrate what it is that you're looking for, which actually makes it more expensive.
Yeah, not convinced. I think those levels of process are already in the system. I hope they are, otherwise we are in real trouble. So those levels are there. It's about making them more effective. I think, there's endless examples of where spending's got out of control, and there seems to be no real rick of, no, you can't do that. So we need to make sure that there is a better scrutiny on public spending. That's a given, I think, for anyone who's sat in this seat who wants to be an MHK. You have to get a hold of that. The £100 million deficit can't grow. It's unsustainable. We have to get back to, zero would be an amazing result, and then after that we need to sort of get into the plus and start to add to reserves again to keep the Isle of Man the place it is. We've got to protect it.
So are you going to spend all your time sitting on the back benches scrutinising things then? Or what do you plan?
No. So I haven't, the plan is destined for you, isn't it? I don't think you have a say, obviously, but you don't demand that you want to be a minister or demand you want to do this job or that job. I will go wherever the government see me best fitting. But I'm not there to make numbers up. I am there to be totally at the front of this and to try and do the best I can for the Isle of Man.
Okay. Then you talk about less unnecessary bureaucracy. Now, if you've identified that that's something that you want to see, you must have examples. So can you give us 2 or 3 examples of unnecessary bureaucracy?
I think some of the things can be around the planning sector. Some of them can be around local authority sectors. There are silly little things that you have to do sometimes that you just think, does that really offend anybody? Is that an actual issue? A signs, for example, or advertising, or very little things that you think, do I really need an application for that? I've got to put a light on a building, but it's in a conservation area. That's a planning application. There's little things you could just free off, I think, and again, zoom out a bit.
Right, and then you finish by saying, know what you're trying to achieve, know what it costs, measure whether it worked, and take responsibility when it doesn't. Again, surely that's what all MHKs will say. So why is it not happening? Assume that you think that it's not happening.
Well, if we say it is happening, and it should be happening because everybody should live by that, there's no accountability. No one's saying, oh yeah, that was my fault. Well, I haven't heard anyone say that. So it isn't happening. So they are, the due process is there, the best intention is there, the delivery is there to a point, but it doesn't sometimes deliver to cost or to spec. So it's about keeping focused on what are you actually trying to achieve. This is the goal, and stick to it.
Right, there you go. You're throwing down a bit of a challenge here. If you get elected, 5 years' time, what is it that you should be held accountable for? What is the thing? You can probably give us a few things, but what are the things that you would hope that people will look at your term in office and say?
I think the key thing in this whole process is reducing the deficit. If we are in a better financial position in 5 years' time than we are today, I would say that's been an effective term. Not just me, it's a collective responsibility of 24 people. That 24 people, I hope, will share the same vision that we have to reduce and we have to be more effective and more efficient and more attractive. So I'd like to see a better GDP and less of a deficit. That's the key thing for me. The nice to haves after that, local authority reform. I'd love to see something around there because I think that'll help the deficit. There's waste, exceptional waste, and then we can start to look at savings in the system, in the greater system, that will reduce that deficit.
So if you're going to be held accountable for those things, which are big ticket things, what specifically is it that you're going to have done in the 5 years to make those things happen?
So the deficit is all about efficiencies. I'm convinced of that. That's all it's about. DFE, for example, a budget of £36 million on its own right. There's 250 people, 256 people. No one's going anywhere. You can't walk into a department and say, right, you're off. But the £36 million can be looked at. And I generally believe through the public-private partnerships of allowing other bodies, other people, private sector industries to suck out some of the groundwork and put the best people in the right places, we can save money. And that is where it's going to come from.
One example of public-private partnership in the UK was privatising things like the parts of the prison service. I mean, is that something that you would consider? I mean, is that the sort of thing that you're talking about here? I mean, the other thing is academy schools and these sorts of things where private sector comes in to run things like that. I mean, is that what you're talking about?
No, I don't think key services would be an area. I would not look at privatising a school or a prison. Absolutely not. I think there are far lower hanging fruit we can look at.
What about an airport?
An airport? No, I don't think so. But the airport
and yet
needs
that's how most airports in the UK operate.
But that airport needs significant investment to bring it back up to modern day spec. And I think any private contractor is going to walk into that building and go, there's no way I'm not going to be left hanging with the baby to modernise an airport to today's spec. So I think if the government gets its house in order in terms of getting a fully fledged proper airport, then the private sector may be the right route. But today, I wouldn't have said that would be a fair deal for anybody.
So it's more private sector involvement in running cleaning services and gardening services than actually taking on any of the big things.
You start at the bottom and you work your way up. If it's successful, we move into the next section, next sector, and we just try and chip away until you end up with a balance and equilibrium. You don't want to be completely private dependent, but you do want, I think, a balance is due, and I think we are too involved in too many things.
Okay. Then you've your third priority, we should get back to those priorities, deliver for Ramsey, which of course is a great thing for a constituency, MHK, to want to do. One of the areas that has been the cause of controversy in Ramsey has been the delivery of quayside flood defences. That has been controversial, the proposals the DOI's put forward. So you're saying actually we need to crack on with this.
So I think again that comes back to my point before of over consultation and inertia. So the government have got a strategy there, and is it of national importance? Well, I'd argue it probably is. I'd also argue it's a trigger project. Without that project, so many other things will never happen. So that project has to happen, which will unlock land behind it for development. So the Barry Curran site on the quayside, £1 million site up for sale at the moment, not attractive. But if it's protected, it becomes attractive. There's so many sites in the basin of Ramsey that's underwater on the flood mapping, so therefore planning won't give you accommodation on the ground floor, for example. There's so many sites in town that once that project's delivered, it solves it. It's delivering a project that's happy for everybody, a balance again. And you're not going to please everybody. That comes back to my point that you need to make these decisions and get on with them, because all you've actually done now is cost yourself another £4 million, because the £3 million project is now a £7 million project and down spec. So it's really difficult to get the balance in terms of what people want to see and protecting the town and redeveloping the town. So Whitehaven had the same issue years ago, and Whitehaven put a lock gate on its harbour, for example, and created a water retention scheme, set the height of the tide, and sorted its flood defences out. That could be an option. There's loads of options out there, but the DOI are currently on the drawing board, which is frankly embarrassing, 6 years down the line from its first proposal. So now we're double the cost and no further down the line.
So are you saying that had you been the DOI minister, you would have just cracked on with the first scheme, or what would you have done differently?
The first scheme wasn't acceptable to people. There was a working group that sat once a month for 12 months. I was one of them, 3 hours a month. And there was every stakeholder in Ramsey. So the commissioners were there, the lifeboat were there, the fishing people were there, the Chamber of Commerce were there. There's a spread of stakeholders. And a project was mocked up with the DOI to a scheme that satisfied the people. And then when it came finally to view, it bore no resemblance whatsoever. And then you wonder why you can't attract people to be volunteers in the commission or in the community, or you're not listening to them. It's simple. You've got to listen to people and put the power back in their hands, because otherwise people are going to go, well, there's no point. And there generally is no point at this point in time doing that. So that was upsetting. But I'd have backed the scheme that the people had brought forward.
One of the controversies, I suppose, of this at the start of this administration was the suggestion that there should be 100,000 people as a target for the population of the Isle of Man. Is that something you support?
I am for growing the economy and for bringing the right people to the Isle of Man. That's crucial, the right people. We have to attract people who are going to bring wealth, job creation, businesses, etc. to the island to boost the GDP. I don't think we need 15,000 of those people. We just need to attract the right people. So we may get away with saying 90,000 people might be the right number of people. What is the right number of people? We are quite a big island in terms of our geography. It's not as simple as saying is 100,000 people the right amount of people, because who knows, 60,000 of the right people could be the right number. It's about finding that balance between GDP and cost, and that's what the right number will be.
Well, sadly, because I've been quite enjoying this, we are coming towards the end of the interview, so we've got a couple of minutes left for you to tell us in a nutshell why people should vote for Robert Cowell for Ramsey.
Well, thank you. Well, because I firmly believe in Ramsey, but I don't want to be that sort of micro-focused guy. I fully believe in the Isle of Man. I think what we have as a natural asset, as I said, is probably the best in Northern Europe. We've got something beautifully special. We can sell it. We can create the best environment. We have got the best environment, I believe, and it's about unlocking that secret potential to the right people who can see the vision that we have. I want to provide the best of services. I believe that the Isle of Man has had a Rolls-Royce treatment for the last 20 years, and we've got very used to it, and we don't want to downgrade, and nor should we expect to. We should be looking at our economy and going, how can we grow to a point where we're sustainable? And that is exactly what we should be doing, and that's what I work very, very hard to deliver.
Well, I think I've asked you how you should be judged. So, what do you hope the Isle of Man government will achieve in the next 5 years?
My firm belief and hope is that there's some commerciality brought to government. Someone who is there within inside, who's got an eye on the price in terms of delivery of projects and funding, and not at any cost project delivery.
That was Rob Cowell, who's standing for election in Ramsey. Also standing in the constituency are Lawrie Hooper, Juan McGuinness and Janine Shimmin. You can listen back to this interview, along with all the others recorded as part of this series, shortly after broadcast from your usual podcast provider. And if you want to find out more about the general election, we've got everything you need to know on our dedicated election website, which you can find, as always, at manxradio.com.